America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first is the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda of the February 20th, 2012 regular meeting as presented.
The motion and a second, all in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of the consent agenda items.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
The motion and a second, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next we have public participation. Ms. Beaver's not here tonight. We'll move on to the report of the superintendent, Mr. Stewart.
You have several notes of appreciation that's in your board packet. I bring those to your attention. Front and back, I think. And then one of the requirements now is we place any safety issues in the report of the superintendent. I don't have any notes, but that will be an agenda item on a weekly basis. Okay. Enrollment, we have received last Wednesday in January, that's enrollment counting there. As our community, we are losing students on a regular basis. This is a result of loss of employment and so forth. I think you just look at the newspaper and the number of rentals that are available and see that reflected. So we've been through a couple of years now of those losses. So bring that to your attention. Teacher in service, the agenda's listed there. Mr. Jokers, you want to say anything?
We had a really good speaker. Tony English is with Show Me Curriculum Administrators, and he did a presentation on the importance of teaching reading and strategies for teaching reading across all of our curricular areas. And this has become even more important as the new Common Core state standards have come into effect, as they have a literacy component that cuts all the way across social studies, science, and technology. All have literacy standards now, and so it was a very interesting in-service. So after that, we had a variety of other things. We had MRI training, we had EMINS training. The administrators had training in thank you, crisis prevention. Tina Howe, we did a training in here and learned some real good things about dealing with a student who is all the way from simply anxious to defensive and beyond into aggressive, violent behavior, and how to defuse those situations and hopefully prevent them from getting to that stage, but how to deal with them as they do. So it was very good training that day.
Want to speak to the awards?
Oh, sure. It'll be in the paper soon. Been kind of waiting to put it in the paper, but the district has been named as an exemplary professional learning community district, and was so designated because each building in the district was also named as an exemplary professional learning community school. That's a process whereby we are nominated by our local regional trainer, and that's Peggy Hitt, that has done our training now for years and years. And she came and did an evaluation with me of all of our school buildings. And then our building principals took a large part in writing up the applications after we were nominated. And then after we were selected, they also had to come up with a presentation and a information board. And then they were asked to come to the Powerful Learning Conference and receive their awards and make presentation about the school, and they did a fantastic job. I received so many comments, positive comments about their presentations, the data that they presented, and just the things that are going on in their schools. It was a really, really great conference and just wonderful to see our school shine and get accolades in that fashion. So, yeah, that was a really good thing. The department named that.
The core of 9 schools.
I think there were 11 schools across the state and 2 districts. The other district was Maryville, and yes, and so pretty big honor, actually.
Absolutely.
Then also, we would like to remind everyone on kindergarten registration. I can't announce they can call and sign up, right?
Yes,
And,
tomorrow.
I jumped together last month, but anyway. Kindergarten registration, very important that people get a hold of us and register their kids and come up for the registration. Extremely important this year as we look at numbers and those kind of things. So we really encourage everyone out there that has a child of kindergarten age to call the elementary building in which they are in and they live in. The registration for St. Genevieve Elementary is on March the 24th from 8 to 1. They can call the elementary office and schedule their child starting tomorrow morning. And in Bloomfield Elementary, the date is March the 31st from 8 to 1. And they can also start calling tomorrow to register those students and those kindergarten age students for those particular dates. We also have the annual school board election coming up, April the 3rd. We have 3 candidates for 2 spots, Mrs. Dunsey and Mr. Kirshner. I think Mr. Kirshner's been on the board, and this is his 18th year. Mrs. Dunsey, this is your 9th year. And Mr. Bova, David Bova is in the audience out here. David's a graduate of St. Genevieve and is the 3rd candidate. So that will be on us before we know it. Construction update. We continue to move along. Hopefully the board tonight will set a date for an open house. I feel that we'll probably be finished right at the end of March, okay? But unfortunately, the weekend after that's Easter, and I didn't want to tread into that, so we'll deal with that after a while. But the construction, the things that we have left take a lot of time. And so, although the building looks pretty close to being finished, it just takes a lot of time. The last electrical part, the projection room, the stage curtains they're working on now. But there's a lot of equipment that goes up in the attic, up in the rafters, I guess I should say, or the metal supports for that part of the building. And then after they do that, then they hang the curtains themselves. There's several other little things that have to be done. And then we'll have to punch it, and then they'll have to do their punch list. And then we'll have to take it over, and we have several things to put in also that we purchased ourselves, such as the storage bins for band equipment, the libraries, the hanging for school uniforms, also the receptacles for music in both the band and vocal music. All those kind of things have to be put together and assembled and so forth. So we're trying to tie all those loose ends in. Other than that, things are in very good shape. Been able to give a few people tours, lots of good compliments and that kind of thing. The lobby is still, the dining or the concrete in the lobby is still not finished. And so all those little details, it takes a lot of coordination and results in us trying to, or takes a lot of time. So that orange bugging me.
Chris has gone to see that, Mr.
Yeah.
McDaniel.
Mr. Mack, Chris, okay, Chris went out. So those kind of things just take a lot of time to get them exact and work through it. So we've got training of our staff on the lighting, on the curtains, on the projection room, the sound panels, and all that to take place. And so it'll take a while to wrap it up. We still have 12 to 14 people working in there on a daily basis. So we'll be there. And so then that's it. That's all I have.
Anyone have any questions? Comments? Thank you guys for the great recognition that you give our school district. Okay, next is unfinished business. First is the calendar for the 2012-2013 school year. That just sounds 2012-2013.
It does sound like a strange date. You can see that the comments that were made, and literally, this is all of the comments. I didn't have to summarize anything, and it was on a page and a half. So really, there were very, very, very few comments. The way the dates fell this year with holidays and whatnot made it a very, very simple calendar, and moving the one work day to the beginning of the school year just really seemed to make it all flow pretty well, and our quarters and our semesters are fairly even, which is important on the high school end of things, especially if you're looking at semester-long classes, or even just trying to balance out, number of days in each half. So the calendar committee met, talked, read all of the things here, and decided that in the interest that many of the comments were more in the interest of personal convenience than educational need, and so the committee was, I really commend them that they tried to pay very close attention to what was best educationally, and so they stayed with exactly as it was proposed to you last month, and this is what they recommend to you.
I move to approve the proposed calendar as presented for the 2012-13 school year.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next is the open house set for April the 15th. Did you say Easter was the weekend
No,
before?
I'm not says that, that was what I suggested. But that
No,
you
I
guys
mean, you said,
suggested that.
I'm sorry, what, the weekend before that?
The weekend before is Easter.
Okay.
And so I felt that that might be a difficult time to have it. If you go the weekend before that, that Sunday's the first day of April.
I
And,
did get Jen's email,
good.
and I will.
So you all make that decision. We'll accommodate whatever you come up with. But I don't think we can go earlier than the 8th. Yeah.
Oh. So you're saying around 2?
We can go over Easter, but I just don't think we can go earlier.
How long do you think it will last?
Oh,
Like a couple
maybe.
hours?
yeah, it's a max, an hour or so.
I just have to be at Hong Park at 5:30.
Oh, no problem.
Crossover.
Did you say what time it would start?
Well, we're suggesting 2, but we could make it 1. I mean, just a matter of church services and that kind of
Two
thing.
is probably good. Well, we can probably make it as long as we want it.
Or as short as we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our plan would be, if that's okay with the board, would be to have a big sheet cake, and people could have cake. We'll have to clean up a little bit of there and there, have a punch or something like that to drink. We'll have some students who will be located throughout the building. The people are going to occupy like band and vocal music there, and people could just walk through, and then at maybe 2:15 or something like that, we would have a general call for the auditorium when people come in, and have a little program real quick with maybe Martha speaking for the board and that kind of thing, depending on the dignitaries that show up, and go from there. And maybe have a little description in there of what is all available with the auditorium, and I think Shelley needs to speak to kind of future concept of how it would be used in the support of the public, that it needs to be contributed. And in order to make the film process go forward, and hopefully after tonight you'll have a director appointed to publicize that, start making plans and dates.
We're gonna have a local instrumental presentation.
We'll have a group playing, like maybe on the stage, a small group, okay? And just have a selective group playing some light music while people are touring around and that kind of thing. How's that?
I think we have Charlie and Shelley.
I also will.
We'll send out invitations to some dignitaries, and hopefully they'll show up, and we'll know if they're gonna be there or not. give them an opportunity to speak.
Oh, Lord, forget it. My next life, I'm gonna be a singer. Not this year, or not this year, not this time.
I move to approve the open house for the St. Genevieve Performing Arts Center to be held on Sunday, April 15th, 2012 at 2 p.m.
That's it. Who seconded?
Sorry.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion. Okay, next, we'll move on to new business. First is the amended budget.
First of all, let me explain a couple of items. In your budget in August, it did include part of the challenge taxes, okay? In this budget, I went ahead and put them in, whether they're not budgeted to be expended, okay? So on that first page there, I speak to that. This amended budget allows a positive balance for the year of $599,064. Taking out all bond issue money, okay? Does not, because we're going to deficit spend significantly because we're spending our bond issue money. So in your total figures there, that bond issue money, though it's all spent this year, and even though that's a negative, we're 599,064 positive in all other categories, okay? And then we'll go and look at the end of the year and so forth. I have planned into this budget the challenges to our local taxes. In this amended budget, I have included all of the protested revenue. I also did not expect to expend all the budgeted expenditures. And so normally, even though they're budgeted, we hold to the line in all categories. We don't necessarily spend every dollar of this budget. If you turn to the next page there, these, of course, are our revenues. And there's been some changes in there concerning expenditures and where they are in comparison to the previous budget. There's been some modifications. Last year, when we had, find myself here so I know what I'm talking about. Hold on just a second. Let's look at this backwards. Okay. Last year, we had some movement of dollars, of the wholesome dollars. And this year, we placed those in a separate category that allows us to track them better. We ended up putting them there last year, but the difference was that this year we've completely separated them so that you can see that on that first page there, page 1, it's the last major item, 5116, in lieu of taxes. And so it's completely listed separate than the current taxes, and so that we can track that better and that type of thing. So last year, as it was finalized, it was put in the budget under current taxes, but it was actually deposited when you looked at the end of the year. The Secretary of War separate, as was required by the state of us. So this year, we pulled that out and we put it separate so that it could be tracked separate. Other than that, our revenues are extremely strong. If you look at expenditures, we plugged in a few items that the board had approved, and we double-checked a lot of other items. And if there was a need of adjustment, we made that. We had one employee, certified employee, salary located in the wrong spot, in the wrong category. We pulled that out and moved it. You had approved some expenditures associated with the construction and with the band and that type of thing. Those were plugged in to this budget. They had been approved before previous purchase of band equipment and that type of thing. And so those were all plugged in. And then when you move through those expenditures, all the way over to the back, you have a balance sheet on page 32. And on page 32, you have all of your revenues at the top, with Fund 1 at 12 million, Fund 2 at 9, Fund 3 at $1,000,004, and Fund 4 revenues at $545,000. Now, to remind you of those funds, Fund 1 is always your open fund. It can be used for any category at all, those funds can. And we often transfer out of that. A lot of schools have eliminated their Fund 2 levies and that type of thing. But we continue to keep $1.18 in our Fund 2 consistently over the year. And Fund 1 fluctuates depending upon reassessment and that whole process. Fund 3, of course, is our debt service to pay off any bonds that we have in the past. And Fund 4 is our building fund. When we sell those bonds, the money from those bonds goes into the building fund. And this year, by July 1, we will expend all of the revenue that has been generated in those bonds, okay? We may have a few dollars left to deal with window replacement, but hopefully that will be spent during the summer. It may have to be in the original budget, I should say. But so then you look at expenditures right down below that, you get total. And as you see, normally we have our Fund 2 ends up way in the hole. That's expenditures for just teacher salaries and benefits. And then we transfer that money from Fund 1 to Fund 2 to balance that particular fund. And so you can see all of that taking place. But the expenditures also has all of that bond issue money in there up under number 4. And so that puts the whole package, you know, under total heavily into the hole. But that's only because we're expending that bond issue money. That's non-renewable, it's dedicated dollars, okay? So now if you go down to the next column there, those show up without bond issue money, okay? And it shows up with everything but not counting bond issue money. That's money we received 2 years ago, and we've carried it over. And as you can see, Fund 1 ends up to the positive, Fund 2 to the negative, Fund 3 debt service ends up $60,000 to the positive, and Fund 4 ends up slightly to the negative 69. And when you balance all of those out, the normal process that we use of transferring money from Fund 2 to Fund 1, it still leaves us with a good balance in Fund 4, a stronger balance in Fund 3, and Fund 2 will end up at 0, and then the whole group ends up at $599,064 to the good. That's taking into consideration any challenge taxes that are out there and that type of thing. So that's actually setting those monies aside to deal with that issue. And if, along the line, if we win as far as all the challenge taxes are concerned, then all that money will be available for the district to use. But at this point in time, we try to play conservative as well as we can, and we've dealt with this in the past, and this prepares us for the future, okay? And so that's kind of why we're taking such a conservative position with those dollars at this time. Question, Mrs. Johnson?
Well, you did answer. You know, I'm assuming that in our packet, the revenue combined summary, that the previous year to date as of January 2010 or 2011.
June 30th, 2000.
The previous year to date is in here?
Yes.
It is June 30th?
Yeah, that's always our beginning date.
And then we're in, okay. I'm done. So I noticed this year to date, we've got about 7
Oh, no, to date, okay, when you look at today, it is.
It's as of January
Yes.
31st, 2011.
Uh-huh,
I forget what year I'm in.
I'm sorry.
And at work, I'm still doing that.
Yeah,
So, but then, so that's why it's comparable to this year to date. So right now, we've got 7.8 million in current taxes year to date compared to 11.4, which you explained part of that is the in lieu tax amount last year.
it's two things.
And
I'm sorry, it's two things. One is the in lieu of taxes, it's in a different column, okay? Last year, it had to be taken out and put in that separate column at the end of the year. So we plugged it back in lieu of taxes. So you have to combine those two, because there was nothing listed before.
Mhm.
And then the other is we have not received the challenge taxes. We would expect to receive them this week. We thought we were gonna get them probably late last week, but this week. And that's almost 2 million more. So that's almost 4.8 million, right at 4.8 million round figures.
Did you get that?
What's that?
The in lieu of taxes?
The in lieu of
Oh,
taxes, that's 2.8, and then 1.9 and some odd dollars there. In round figures, it's 2.8 million and 1.9 million.
Yeah, I saw
So,
that. So even with that, the budget is down from last year's tax number.
no. Not overall.
Not overall.
Where are you looking at that?
Well, if you look at the previous year to date as of January, it was 11.4. Oh, but if you take the 2 out, okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah. And, the basic formula, do we get different installments of that? And
Yes, ma'am.
probably what's in our current packet as of January isn't the total amount
Oh, no.
that we, because I noticed there's a substantial.
We get
number
monthly
of dollars.
payments on all those things.
Okay.
So on all those that are short on the budget and what we receive, that's because we receive federal dollars, all federal dollars, and all state money on a monthly basis, so we
Okay.
still have,
That's why I
several
wanted to
months left.
clarify what year-to-date this
Yeah.
was, so that makes
Okay.
sense. Then I'm good.
okay, yeah, that's why we do this, okay? Yeah, and so there's on local revenues, you've got almost all your local money. There's one more payment in March that if somebody pays their taxes late under penalty in January and February, we receive in March and it's considered, local as up to date, not delinquent. After March, it becomes delinquent. And then, you have, of course, the protested taxes, it's not in there. And then you have, the movement of those, in lieu of taxes. Now, that pulls dollars
Yeah, and I
off, you
think I
gotta
like
combine
that
all that.
separated. I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I was always trying to separate even more and so forth, but unsuccessful.
The bond issue balance sheet, then that's the amount of money we're talking about having left over.
We have not committed at this point in time. So as of right now, if something pops up different in the, auditorium, we expect that $146,000 left. So we've moved forward with the next item, which is windows. And so we would hope to bring something to you in March, to deal with the most pressing issue of those windows. Whether we can even do what all we asked the architect to comment on, to meet your plan and so forth. We don't know if we can even do that. We won't until bids come in. The drawings are out and ready, but we designated we had about 5 different areas. We designated 3 of those because the windows are worse there than anywhere else. The shop for the low ag, which has some tuck pointing tied into it, the annex of the middle school, and part of the high school on the north side around the shop areas there. They're high up windows, and there's some big problems with ventilators and so forth associated with them. So we tried to designate that. That would leave us 2 other areas still, if we can do all 3 of those. But I question whether they'll even come in where we can do all 3. We named one of them as primary and the most pressing, and the other 2 just throw those in as alternates, okay? And so by March, this will be a done deal. We'll know exactly what we've got left. And then we have some funds that are in our building fund and so forth that, we're not tied to an exact dollar amount. We could expend those funds on doing those projects or where they break at. Let's say 2 of them come in combined together at $160,000. We could commit $14,000 from our operating building fund to do those and complete those 2 projects, okay? So we won't know until we get those bids in and that type of thing.
So Mike, I've had some concerns expressed about the 5th grade playground,
Right.
I know we did some backfilling there so that the drop-off isn't quite as big, but I think with the preschoolers there, that's still kind of a concern for some of the people, that if there could be some sort of fencing put around that one corner, and maybe it doesn't have to encase the whole playground, just to kind of protect that one corner. I think the fifth graders actually like that little thing. They can jump on and off of it and things, but just even
Let's
keep
take a
balls and
Let's
things.
take a look at it.
And I think they were hoping if there was money left, that maybe that could be addressed
Okay.
too.
I think about it, wouldn't have to be very high, would it?
Probably not.
Yes and no.
Depends on how high they can climb.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions, comments?
I would point out to you that last sheet there, that it's an informational thing that I've always presented to you, page 34. And as you can see, as we were talking about bond issue money a while ago, if you go down Fund 4 since 1990, you'll see some years there where we ended the year with a lot of bond issue money in Fund 4, down at 1998, and again in 2000, and then again in 07, and again then in 10 and 11, okay? So we ended the year with quite a little bond issue money those years as we were constructing, and we're not able to finish them during the year. And that's the same boat that we're in now, but by the end of this year, July 1, okay, which is our fiscal year, we expect to have that bond issue money spent, and so we'll be back to our normal balances in Fund 4, okay? And then you can see in Fund 1, as we move through that and looked at being able to make it to January without borrowing money or that kind of thing. We've never had to borrow. We've had to ask the county collector to move money a little faster than normal a couple of times, but we've never had to. But we need those balances to get to January because we're a heavily local district. And we don't need them as bad now since Wholesome pays theirs October 1. But in 9 years, that will be needed because that will be current taxes thing, okay? So we need to remember that. I won't be here, but hopefully some of the rest of you will be around. And that's something you always got to remember, that in 9 years that's going to hit. And that 2.8 million that we get now from in lieu of taxes, that's going to go in tax bill. You're going to receive that in January, okay? So that has to continue. And you can see what I was talking about with Fund 2, except for 1 year back in '93 when somebody made a pencil mistake. We usually zero out that count and add money to it. And then our debt service fluctuates, and right now it's the strongest it's ever been, but also our indebtedness is pretty heavy too, so, okay?
Move to approve the amended budget for the 2011-12 school year.
The motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And next is the the resolution to support MSBA's Vision Project Action.
Will Mrs. Stoker speak to that?
Sure. If you all remember back at the MSBA regional meeting, you received this document, and it is the culmination of more than a year of work by educators across the state, and trying to set a vision for what we would like to see education be for students in our state. Frequently, educators are hammered a little bit because we want to always say, no, that's not good, that's not good, that's not good, when legislators do something. And we don't want that, and we don't want that, and we don't want that. So the question then becomes, well, what do you want? And so this document is the effort to answer that. What do we want? We want this as our vision. And in your board packet, I put the summary page, and it lists 7 core components, the areas that were discussed by committees from across the state. That would teaching, learning, and assessment, early learning and student success, climate, culture, and organizational efficacy, human and organizational capital, governance, leadership, and accountability, physical resources, and financial resources. There were teams that discussed each of these, and this document lists and describes all of that. So all of you should have this, and if you don't, there is a website that is the Missouri Vision Project website that you can take a look at it. But MSBA has asked that the school boards across the state adopt a resolution to support the vision for Missouri and education. And so you see the resolution here. Ms. Martha, do you want me to read it or no, or what do you want me to do on that?
Well, I would like to see it.
Okay. So the resolution states, whereas the St. Genevieve R2 Board of Education and Superintendent believe it is imperative to build trust and support for public education, and whereas it is critical to ensure meaningful engagement of communities with their public schools, and whereas Missouri needs a vision to improve significantly the education culture in our state, and whereas the goal of every school district in Missouri is to provide an exemplary educational experience for all students, and whereas we must ensure our students are competitive in a global economy, and whereas we must be committed to provide the resources necessary to provide our students with a world-class education, and whereas we must make learning more rigorous, more relevant, and more real, and whereas we are dedicated to being responsive to students' individual needs, and whereas we support the partnership between the Missouri School Board Association and Missouri Association of School Administrators that culminated in the development of a vision to transform public education in Missouri through specific recommendations. Therefore, be it resolved, the St. Genevieve R2 Board of Education and Superintendent on this 20th day of February 2012 hereby indicate our support for the work embedded in the Missouri Public Education Vision Project Report, and will determine areas of transformation for our district in our continuing efforts to improve educational opportunities for all students. So we would ask that you would make a motion to adopt this resolution.
I move to approve the resolution to support MSBA Vision Project as presented.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I do have a copy for your signature, Ms. Martin, when we're done.
And next is the Performing Arts Center Coordinator.
One of the things we know that we need someone to deal with this Performing Arts Center, and so, or to Mrs. Jokers, did we have a job description for you?
Yes, we definitely need someone because we have folks clamoring to rent the space already. So I put together this job description, and I think it will be one that I keep out and revise as we go along. Just as with anything that's a completely new position, you try to get a concept of what you think it will be, and then adjust that concept as you progress into what it really is. And so for right now, I've tried to state what I know will be the job duties, such as scheduling the activities, keeping a calendar, being the liaison between the school and the community, and various things of that nature. So do you have questions about anything on the job description?
I thought it was really good.
Is there
Very,
anything anybody else feel like needs to be added, or? As I said, it will be revised periodically.
Yeah, one big point to make public too is this is a part-time position, and the handle more as a stipend to start with, and that kind of thing. Mrs. Jokers was able to evaluate it and the usage of the building, the amount of time involved, and all those kind of things. So it would be handled in that manner, and hopefully fill the position right away.
I imagine the first year, a lot of time just to get
Figure it all out and set up the systems, you know, figure out efficient ways to make things happen. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that.
How many inquiries were used to the facility?
Well, we've had one sitting waiting for several months, but we already have, mostly they're in-house right now, the request. The one that we have that's is outside. But most of them have been our in-house folks trying to schedule it for things this spring after our grand opening. Yeah, we're gonna,
Excited.
I mean, we're gonna start using it, getting the ground running.
I move, go ahead.
I move to approve the new position of Performing Arts Center Coordinator as presented.
I'll second.
With a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next is the addition of the fifth grade section at the Bloomfield Elementary.
Yes, this is a position that 3 years ago we reduced because of class size, and that class will be moving on to the junior high. And so we're asking to formally approve the addition of a fifth grade teacher in that program, and that would keep 3 sections at all levels at Bloomsdale, plus we have 1 section with 4 levels, so.
How many?
We have the same number of fifth grade next year. We have 4th grade this year. And the class sizes are in that 18 to 20 range.
I move to approve the addition of another section for fifth grade for next school year, Bloomfield Elementary, resulting in fifth grade having 3 sections.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, motion carries. You know what's exciting is that we're adding and not reducing.
Sure.
Okay, next is the resignation of Board of Education member.
Mrs. Stolz's speak to that.
Well, I want to thank the board for working with me in the last 5 years, and the fact that I was honored enough to be elected into this position. I've learned a tremendous amount, and also had always wanted to get back in education. This was one of the ways I was able to get back and serve our students of our district. It just pointed out the fact that I really miss being in the classroom, and that's what I would like to do. And in order for me to be in a classroom, I need to resign from this position. But I wanted to thank everybody for their support.
Come on, Brea. It's been awesome to work with you, and you've been a tremendous help with us, and thank you for doing that big job with policy. That took a lot, because I know I didn't have the time to do it. And I know I appreciate everything you've done with us, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
What if nobody makes a motion?
Point of order, huh?
Throw it out there.
So most people have never served on the board, especially the Board of Education, don't realize how much time people spend and receive nothing for it, that kind of thing. And it's a very difficult position. You get a lot of people that want certain things and so forth. You have to worry about the welfare of the district and so forth. And Mrs. Olson, let me express my appreciation. You've been a very good board member, and the board will simply miss you.
Thank you.
I would bring to your attention that I put an item in your board packet about one of our policies pertaining to resignation and so forth. But then also, there's a policy on your desk, expired term fulfillment vacancies. And the process, basically, if you read down through there, simply says, and I'm saying this because I think we need to address that as a motion to approve her resignation. It says that in the case of resignation, the vacancy will be declared to exist with the Board of Education, and when the Board of Education votes to accept the member's letter of resignation. So I would suggest with my recommendation there that we declare a vacancy to exist on the board. And that means that there's 2 weeks, according to our policy, that people would have to send a letter saying they would want to be considered for that, okay? And so that would give us 2 weeks, and then you all could actually invite those people to the next board meeting. You could have their participation, then give a biographical summary of their lives or whatever, and then they could, then at the next board meeting, which is the April board meeting, when we reorganize anyway, you can make a motion to approve approve somebody as a replacement for the term of Mrs. Stolzer, which is 1 year, because her position is up for re-election, not this April, but the following April. So that would be an option that you would have to appoint somebody at that time for that 1 year, and so forth. So you could do that at the April board meeting. That would meet your timeline as per this policy calls for. So that's up to you. But if you simply put in motion to declare a vacancy to exist on the board, and this policy would go into effect. And we'd advertise it through the local paper and radio stations that people interested send a letter, and then you would look at those letters after 2 weeks, and they would send them to Mr. McDaniel, who's the secretary of the board at the district office, 375 North Fifth Street, Texas. So that would follow your board policy.
I was just thinking of something. 12 last year, can you imagine this time?
So at this point, we should, your suggestion is to follow this policy.
Yeah, to move to approve the resignation of Mrs. Stolzer effectively at the end of this session, it's open and closed session, and this board meeting, and to declare a vacancy to exist on the board. And then that would simply, after that motion, would mean that we would announce to the public that anyone who's interested to send a letter in during the next 2 weeks stating their interest. And then according to your policy, that's what it says. And then the next board meeting, you could ask those people to come and do a biography of themselves, their background, or that kind of thing. And then you can delay for another month, as it says. And at the April board meeting, you can decide who to fill that position, and so forth. So, but you do that in an open session according to your policy.
I have a question, but I'm not sure. I guess I can ask it.
Sure.
Now. In the, we have 3 people running. Couldn't we go with those 3 people?
If ever the board agreed to, I mean, you couldn't,
It would have to be after election,
you
right?
need to do that after the election at the April meeting. Right.
And then the one that's.
You can make that decision. It's, you do
Okay,
not,
we could do that.
you
now.
do not have to pick from people that send the letters in. It says specifically, the board may select final candidate from the applicants, and those individuals will be interviewed in open session at a regular or special meeting of the board, okay? But you do not have to do it that way, you know? But you do have to allow people to apply during a 2-week period, because that's what your policy calls for, okay? That's why I'm saying to go ahead and declare a vacancy to exist on the board, and that allows that policy to kick in. It gives people an opportunity, anyone who wants to apply. Yeah, you're right, we have 3 people running for a position. There's only 2 positions open, now there's 3, but that's all to be decided too.
I move to approve the resignation of Andrea Stolzer as RT board member effective at the end of the February 20th, 2012 open and closed session of the Board of Education, and declare a vacancy on the Board of Education as of the end of the closed session, February 20th, 2012.
Okay.
I might add regret.
Here's what I wrote, Senior Artifact. Move to approve the resignation of Andrea Stolzer as RT board member effective at the end of the 2012 open and closed session of the Board of Education meeting, and to declare a vacancy exists on the board, and to follow board policy to fill the vacancy.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I need a second. Okay, we're moving on to second, all in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Again, let me say that that kicks in the board policy, and so it's publicly announced now to the paper and radio stations and so forth, but there's a 2-week period in here, people can send a letter to Mr. Terry McDaniel, who's the secretary of the board, to the district office, 375 North Fifth Street, and within the next 2 weeks, and then those letters, those people will be considered at following at future board meetings, okay? All right. Okay.
Mr. McDaniel?
I move that the Board of Education hold a closed meeting with a closed record and closed vote following a regular open meeting on March 19, 2012, to be held in the R.W. Thomas Library, 715 Washington Street, St. Louis, Missouri, for the purpose of discussing and voting upon the following items of business: legal action, causes of action, or litigation; lease, purchase, or sale of real estate; hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting particular employees; scholastic probation, expulsion, or graduation of identifiable individuals; testing and examination materials; preparation for negotiation with employee groups; specification for competitive bidding until approved or published; sealed bids and related documents until the bids are open; sealed proposals and related documents until all proposals are rejected, or any documents related to a negotiated contract until a contract is executed; individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment; records protected from disclosure by law; records relating to municipal hotlines established for the reporting of abuse and wrongdoing; confidential or privileged communication with an auditor; existing or proposed security systems and structural plans of district property; records identifying would allow unauthorized access to or unlawful disruption of the configuration, components, or the operation of a computer system, computer network, or telecommunications network; credit card numbers, personal identification numbers, digital certificates, physical and virtual keys, access codes or authorization codes that are used to protect the electronic transactions. I further move that notice of this meeting and its consent agenda be posted as required by law. So a motion is second. Roll call. Eric Bosler.
Yes.
Charlie Crowder.
Yes.
Joan Dunsey.
Yes.
Kim Kircher. Terry McDaniel, yes. Martha Reeser.
Yes.
Andrea Stolzer.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
I need to go to closed session with a closed record and a closed vote after a short break.
Second.